I'm Don Tapscott.
And I'm Alex Tapscott.
And this is What's on Tap for this week. Alex, another big week. Have we had a week that wasn't a big week? A bunch of things. This week was, of course, is it a turning point for global crypto regulation? President Vladimir Putin, while he's not paying attention to the situation in the Ukraine, rejected a Bitcoin ban that was proposed by the Russian central bank. It's interesting. Thailand scrapped a 15% withholding tax on crypto gains after an outcry from lots of people, including traders. And I guess most significantly, India announced that it would be regulating and taxing Bitcoin and shared its ambitions for a digital rupee. And India's 18% of the world's population already has over 100 million crypto holders. In the same way, cell phones helped billions of Indians leapfrog landlines. The question is kind of on the table: could crypto empower a new generation of Indians to leapfrog traditional banks? I know in my conversation with Mukesh Ambani, who's the chairman of the largest company in India, Reliance Industries, that was his ambition. They also own the big telecommunications mobile network called Jio, 300 million people. And he wanted to roll out blockchain as a service. And one of the goals was to bring all kinds of citizens in India into the global economy. So is this really a big deal? What do you think's going on here, Alex?
I think it is a big deal, especially the India news. And I think that perhaps it is a turning point in terms of global crypto adoption and regulation. And, Russia and Thailand aside, I do think that the big news here is around India. This is a country that's got 18% of the world's population and already has a lot of crypto users. I mean, it's a young, dynamic population. It's a massive and growing economy. It's a population that is digitally native and is used to using, cell phones and smartphones and the internet. And so it's a natural fit that they would be interested in this area. I think, as you pointed out, there are, I believe, 30 million landlines in all of India, but there are, a billion cell phone users, and Mr. Mukesh Ambani is a big beneficiary of that, obviously. And, we didn't need to build out landlines to every home in every town and village and city in India in order to connect people. And the same thing applies to financial services. We don't need to build every, bank branch in every little town and village. It would take probably centuries to bring the population of India into the traditional financial world. But we can do it much quicker with crypto assets as a way to, move and store value, access credit, and make investments, buy insurance and so forth. All the sort of basic building blocks of, retail banking can be achieved through this technology and through the nascent applications of DeFi and others. And I think that that's very, very exciting. And it's probably welcome news to Mukesh Ambani as well, who actually said, and I quote, I think smart tokens are making sure that you are creating transactions that can never be changed. Today is still a world where large companies get easy finance and small companies don't get easy finance. And the same thing with people. And I think that will change. I think the convergence of distributed ledger and blockchain technologies, smart tokens, the convergence of physical and digital through IoT will enable and redefine the decentralized finance sector in a way we've never imagined. So that was only a month and a half ago. I don't know, you don't want to read the tea leaves, so to speak, and maybe think that he had a hand in trying to steer the direction. But obviously, it's a welcome piece of news that an economy that will probably be one of the three largest in the world in a matter of a decade, and could maybe someday in a century or more become the biggest economy in the world, is one that's on the right footing here, finally. So there's a lot of details in this proposal, this law. It's not all good, but overall, this is a positive direction. And I think it's interesting to contrast it to what's happening in the US. Now, I would say that the US overall has got sort of a mixed perspective on this asset class and on this technology. On the one hand, at the state level, there are governors in many parts of the country who view this as an industry that could support job growth and innovation, help secure, the energy grid, help onboard unbanked people, and so forth. That's something that's happening right now. On the other hand, at the federal government level, there's a little less enthusiasm. This is not a partisan issue. Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary during Trump, and Trump himself had pretty nasty things to say about digital assets. And the same is true, now with Elizabeth Warren and other sort of statist people that, if the government's not doing it, it must be bad kind of perspective. So what we're actually going to hear about soon is an executive order from the Biden administration that they say is a matter of national security about crypto assets and about blockchain. And it's going to be this sweeping directive that's going to touch every part of the industry. Now, I find this quite interesting and somewhat ironic because we've advocated, I think, for a long time that this is a matter of national security, but not in the ways that they probably imagine. It's a matter of national security because blockchain is the second era of the internet, and it is going to create the next generation of dynamic, valuable organizations and the next era of innovation and prosperity even. And in the same way that the US benefited from the growth of the first era of the internet, it has an opportunity, it's really its opportunity to lose, to be the place where all of this innovation happens in blockchain. So it's a matter of national security that government create the conditions and the bill and put up the guardrails to ensure that the private sector and the civil society and individuals can actually experiment and innovate and actually grow this industry. So it's so funny because it is a matter of national security, but I expect it'll be around a bunch of straw men, boogeymen arguments about money laundering and criminal activity, which are completely unsubstantiated and have been refuted many times before. So we'll see how that one goes.
Well, I'm reminded of the report that we wrote unsolicited for Biden-Harris, outlining an entire strategy for the United States around the second era of technology, not just within government, but as you allude to, Alex, within the economy, the financial system, how it could help build a better, more robust democracy and maybe help overcome the crisis of the legitimacy of democracy, how it could be used in solving social problems and so on. That report, by the way, for everyone, it's at the Blockchain Research Institute.org. Right after this episode, I'm going to tweet it out, and I would encourage anyone to retweet that so that we can try and get some traction for this. But, it's like leaders of the old paradigm have difficulty embracing the new. It just continues to be a problem. As for Mukesh Ambani, say what you like about the guy, and he's very controversial, but he is the most powerful person in India, probably more so than the Prime Minister and Modi. And he's enormously influential and he's enormously smart. I had a long meeting with him in his boardroom in Delhi, and he blew me away basically, just with his deep knowledge. By the way, he'd read our book from cover to cover, Alex, and he gets this whole blockchain thing. So that's a real asset. And it's funny, you think about the role of the individual in history, that a single person can maybe make a difference somewhere.
Are you talking about him or are you talking about us? Because we wrote the book that he read that influenced the direction of the world's third largest country.
You make a very good point. Very good point.
I'm joking.
Yes, I am too. But no, we're not claiming to have turned the world around. The world is not yet turned around. Regardless, there is much to be done. So what else we got going on here?
Well, it's interesting that Mukesh Ambani used the term decentralized finance.
Yeah.
That that's a relatively new concept, I think, for the mainstream. Usually you hear about blockchain and so forth, and that's a more general term. DeFi is the application of this technology to the financial services industry. And we wrote in Blockchain Revolution and have done a lot of research since about how blockchain, but also all these new technologies of the second era of the digital age are creating, all sorts of disruption. And one of the, I guess, big trends or themes that we've seen is the decentralization in general. And maybe it's time to take this concept and apply it to other parts of the economy and come up with a taxonomy or a framework thinking about it. Have you given any thought to that?
Well, I have, and I'm of two minds on this because on the one hand, many successful companies, not many, but a number of them are highly vertically integrated. And they're kind of the opposite of decentralized. You think about a company like Apple that, has a vast kind of supply chain that it owns or controls. On the other hand, even Apple, they don't do their own manufacturing, for example, and there's a certain degree of distribution there. But on the other hand, you have this inexorable force of this technology that it's not just that people are becoming more decentralized, it's sort of replacing a lot of what traditional centralized organizations did with software. That's essentially what DeFi is. You don't need a bank to store value. You don't need a bank to move value. You don't need a bank to lend value or invest value, as you've outlined, Alex.
Yeah.
So let's come up with some new names. We'll coin them here today. Maybe we can get a discussion going online. But what would this mean for, for government? Well, let's start with health. DeHealth, we'll call it DeHealth. And that's a distributed model of health whereby we all own our patient records and we take more responsibility, each of us, for our own wellness because we have access to our own data. And we can also collaborate with others to better manage our health. But we're going to need a blockchain network to make sure that information is valid and truthful and that we're not, that Joe Rogan is not part of our network advising us on how to manage our health. You could have DeFab, okay, that'll be distributed manufacturing. It's already a trend towards this called additive manufacturing, where you have, basically 3D printing of all kinds of products in a highly decentralized way. So let's get rid of additive manufacturing. We'll bring in blockchain and we'll call it DeFab. How about DeGov? Well, right now, governments are certainly highly centralized. And, there is a role for planning, central planning in some ways. But hasn't a big theme over the last while been to find new ways of citizen engagement? I mean, the old model of democracy was you vote, I rule, right? And, I'm a politician. Thanks for electing me. I'm going to broadcast to you and I'm going to tell you what to do. And here's the way it's going to go on for 4 years. And then you get to do it again. Citizens were inert. There was a culture of passivity. Well, maybe we can move to a second era of democracy where there's a culture of public deliberation, active citizenship, and where citizens kind of step up to be more involved in their own civilization because they are able to, with access to information and with services that can be decentralized. I mean, you could go on and on here. DeMeta, the Metaverse is going to be a decentralized thing, hopefully. Hopefully we won't have some giant centralized social media company that's creating the Metaverse and expropriating all of our data. I don't know, what else we got? The supply chain. Well, it's already kind of decentralized, but it really could be with blockchain, as you have a sort of a shared network state where all of these different players have access to the same information, where there are real-time transactions, a single version of the truth and so on. And it's not, that would not be provided by some central supply chain depot. It would be supplied or provided by the network. So you could, I don't know, kind of pick any part of the economy and think about what decentralization and this technology might mean for it.
You think of all this stuff because there's these different concepts that are kind of floating around, and everyone's trying to figure out how to classify this. Web3 is one that's used a lot. And I think about, decentralizing finance, so DeFi, as being the financial services arm of Web3, kind of, as a way to think about it. And it's really a natural fit because we're talking about, intangible assets that are easily digitized, that can be moved and stored and managed. But when you think about some of these other more, I don't know, the industries like supply chains, for example,
Yeah.
or manufacturing, DeFab, decentralized manufacturing. That's part of some sort of bigger decentralization trend, but it's not Web3. Like, not everything is Web3. Web3 refers specifically to, a web that is more private, more open, and more decentralized, where individuals own their own data and they can move and store assets peer to peer, and they can, have digital sovereignty. But that's different from, making a semiconductor or something in a plant or something like that. So I don't know. How do you square these two concepts?
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm wondering is that if we could have additive manufacturing without blockchain, what happens when you bring blockchain in? And, there are already good examples of this where there are companies like Moog, not the synthesizer, the other Moog. Actually, I think they're siblings. That's manufactures precision parts for the aircraft industry. And they used to manufacture their stuff and send it off to Boeing. Now they use blockchain to manufacture stuff in the Boeing plant, and the blockchain handles all of it's kind of the transaction layer and so on. Now it's still Boeing, a big centralized company, and Moog, a supplier. But I think something is changing here quite fundamentally, that blockchain added to manufacturing opens up some new opportunities that didn't exist for decentralization. I don't know. I just think it's worth exploring.
I agree. And I think it's the right framework for thinking about it. I mean, not everything will become decentralized, just like not everything is going to be Web3. But these are big, massive, multi-year trends that are going to capture everything. I mean, you could have said in the 90s, like, not everything's going to be, an internet company. It's like, well, a lot of companies actually became internet companies, whether they knew it or not. So we'll see if this is something that plays out with the same or greater impact. As we've said before, we think it probably will. I wonder, are some of these themes going to be covered at our upcoming event, Blockchain Revolution Global?
Well, you bet, Alex. We're about to announce Blockchain Revolution Global, the themes, and also some sponsors. But I thought before we lock and load on this, it might be a good idea to have a little discussion amongst the What's on Tap community if we've got the right themes. Obviously, Web3 and digital assets, digital transformations is the overall theme. But within that, we have 8 different streams. We're populating them with some pretty interesting speakers. And they include, I'll just whip through them here, decentralized finance that we've just talked about, supply chain, same thing, shared network state, emerging Web3 platforms. So we have the sort of taxonomy that you've been developing about the different stages that these platforms have been evolving over the years.
Yeah.
I think you said that 2022 is what, the year of, what was it, interoperability or?
Multi-chain maximalism.
Yeah, did you confess to being a multi-chain maximalist?
Yes. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm a multi-chain maximalist. I went to Multi-Chain Maximalists Anonymous. There's a mouthful.
There you go. I don't think I could even say that. Another one is NFTs and other digital assets. And listeners of this podcast will remember are nine type taxonomy of digital assets, of which NFTs are one. It's a funny thing, the blindfolded person and the elephant, that blockchain used to be crypto. And then every time I'm talking to somebody now, it's, oh yeah, you're into NFTs, right?
Yeah.
Well, actually, there are 9 different types. Energy and planet sustainability, and both you and I have been all over this, tokenizing carbon credits and the opportunity to use blockchain to really crack this problem of climate change. Digital identity, for me, the holy grail of this new era of the digital age, that we might actually have a self-sovereign identity where we get to keep our data, own it, monetize it if we want, share it if we want, protect our privacy and security and so on. The Metaverse, which is getting a second life because blockchain enables the protection of assets through NFTs, digital currencies, and so on. And the healthcare revolution, as we were talking about, decentralized healthcare and a whole new platform for delivering wellness in the population. So you heard it here first. Those are the 8 big themes. Anyone who's listening in, please, on our social media platforms, let us know if we're missing something.
Geez, I thought you'd take a more ambitious approach. These are some pretty small topics, reinventing healthcare, finance, all these things. No, it sounds like an amazing event.
Well, we're trying to stay focused here.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that a problem of this world? It's like everything is connected to everything else. And you peel away a layer, and all of a sudden, this whole new world of opportunity kind of opens up.
Is that the truth?
While we're talking about this week, big news, the CEO of Google, of Alphabet actually, has finally said something about blockchain in a statement, saying he thinks it's a big deal. And get this quote, anytime there's innovation, I find it exciting, and I think it's something we want to support as best we can. The web has evolved, and it's going to continue to evolve. And as Google, we have benefited tremendously from open sources technology, so we plan to contribute there. And they're looking at integrating blockchain into all kinds of core services. So we're starting to have some conversations finally with Google about doing something in this space. So maybe, I don't know how that segues from the last topics. Is it in the category of the Empire Strikes Back? I'm not sure. But good to have Google on board. We look forward to discussing further with them. Anything else, Alex? I think that's a...
No, other than Facebook just reported its earnings, and they missed their earnings numbers because of some headwinds in the advertising space. Putting that aside, though, there was an interesting data point, which is that they lost $11 billion in their Oculus division. You might remember Oculus is the virtual reality, augmented reality group within Facebook. From an accounting perspective, it's a loss, but I'm sure the company thinks of it as an investment in the future. And the company renamed itself to Meta and is spending billions and billions of dollars every single year on building out its vision of what a metaverse would look like, combination of massive open online world combined with this rich virtual reality AR kind of experience. And yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about, which is, the centralized metaverse versus the decentralized metaverse, and which one is going to win. And we know now that Facebook is spending a lot of money on this. So I think that point about Google is interesting, that I think Web 2 firms are realizing that there's potential as well as risk to what Web3 could do to their business, right? So, so I think expect more of that to come over the coming months, weeks and months from leaders of these big tech conglomerates.
Yeah, for sure. On the Oculus, on the hardware side, I don't know if people listening have tried out that technology recently, but it's quite extraordinary. We're doing a family ski trip to Whistler, and I put on a headset, and I was actually able to go down some of the runs. and remind myself of what they're like. And it's quite extraordinary. I'm a very good skier in the virtual world, but hopefully the physical world I can develop the same chops. I think we're out of time here.
Yeah.
Announcements. Our recent webinar, Blockchain Food Safety and Sustainable Agriculture, is now available on the Blockchain Research Institute YouTube channel. An extraordinary session based on a company called DeMeta that's involved in every part of the food chain using blockchain technology and other technology. It's really a trivergence play of blockchain, AI, and the Internet of Things. And it's definitely worth 50 minutes to check that out. As I mentioned, Blockchain Revolution Global is returning April 21st, 22nd at the Metro Convention Center. So just go to blockchainrevolutionglobal.com. That's going to be the Web3 Summit, basically, for this year. And do go on to Amazon and check out our new books. Platform Revolution is available in hardcover and ebook editions on Amazon, edited by yours truly. Prior to that, we have The Supply Chain Revolution, also edited by me and Alex Tapscott, edited. The Financial Services Revolution. And I know you've got a new one now that's in the can, Alex, the Digital Asset Revolution. That should be available on Amazon soon for pre-order. And I have in fact read that manuscript, and it's a tour de force. Can't wait to see that in the market. Anything else from you?
Oh, that's it.
Okay, well, that's what's on tap for this week. We'll see you in a week.